Black codes. Black codes forced free slaves into sharecropping, also known as tenant farming. The Black codes came in under President Johnson's plan of Reconstruction. Sharecropping is when a landowner rents land to a tenant farmer for a sum of the produced crops in return. A merchant will also lease equipment, clothing, and anything else needed to survive for some of the crops as well. If the tenant farmer had a bad harvest and couldn't produce, they would enter debt with the landowner and the merchant. They would then have to work to pay off the incurred debt. After the Civil War, the South realized they needed to diversify their agriculture. The tobacco industry was revitalized with new ways of production. The bite which the previous tobacco had was cut down on, and this resulted in the industry being revitalized. Even with the rebirth of the tobacco market, cotton was still the king crop of the South. Textile mills then began popping up throughout the South. These mills ran off of a hydroelectric power. Coal, iron, and limestone started to become mass-produced in Birmingham, Alabama. Birmingham would then become known as the Pittsburgh of the South. Southern pine trees were also favored in the South because they had a soft texture and were able to use for many things. The trees were used to restore the homes that were destroyed during the war. Lumber camps were set all throughout the Southeast. After 1870, forestry schools were becoming prominent, and it crippled some of the lumber industry. Carpetbaggers. Carpetbaggers is the term for white northerners who carried carpet bags when they were relocating to the South. Carpetbaggers moved to the South to take advantage of Reconstruction. When they relocated, they also brought along the idea of the textile mill. However, they were greatly disliked because they supported free slaves and tried to push their northern ways upon the Southerners. Scalawags and Bourbons. Scalawags and Bourbons were infamous people in the New South along with the carpetbaggers. Scalawags meant worthless livestock, and this term was given to the white Southerners who supported Reconstruction. Bourbons, aka Redeemers, were Southern Democrats who were considered to be reactive instead of proactive. Bourbons wanted to restore the South to its old ways and regain the power they had over African Americans. The Ku Klux Klan. The Ku Klux Klan then emerged in the New South and was created by 6 former Confederate officers. Nathan Bedford Forrest is one of the more famous of the originators. The group was a white supremacist group that tried to keep the power in the hands of the white Southerners. The group disliked African Americans, abolitionists, carpetbaggers, and scalawags. Amending the Constitution. The 14th Amendment was ratified in July of 1868. The amendment gave freed slaves the right to gain citizenship. The 15th Amendment would then follow in March of 1870. This amendment allowed African Americans to vote for the first time. Civil Rights Act of 1875. The Civil Rights Act of 1875 would then follow the 14th and 15th Amendments. The act was proposed by Charles Sumner and Benjamin Butler in 1870. It was then signed by President Grant in February of 1875. The act ended all discrimination of race, color, or condition of previous servitude and public accommodations. However, it was rarely enforced in the South. Jim Crow laws and disfranchisement. After the 15th Amendment and the Civil Rights Act of 1875, Southern states began implementing Jim Crow laws. Every Southern state before 1890 passed laws to keep African Americans from voting. This was known as disfranchisement. These laws had 3 ways of keeping African Americans from voting. Starting with property tests, which made it illegal to vote for a person that didn't own property. The next was a poll tax, which made it to where there was a tax to be able to vote. And finally there was a literacy test. Literacy tests were given and they had to be passed in order to be able to vote. Most African Americans were uneducated, so they couldn't read or write. Even if all the stages were passed by an African American, They would still have to have a white affluent person to vouch for them. And roll the credits. Topic 13. The New South. Created and narrated by Anderson Moore.